Hello and welcome to Gifted Underachievers, a podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, James and I talk about taking the pause before you say yes or no to a project, or before you follow up on something another person has said. We talk about how to develop the skill of being able to take a pause, even when you're triggered, even when you're excited, even when you're mad. Hope you enjoy.
I don't know how to start.
Let's start at the beginning, James.
Starting at the beginning.
All right. We're talking about the importance of a pause.
Yes. And, so this came into my mind because it's something that happens a lot and I've thought about a lot and tried to develop a lot, but I fail at it a lot too. Even though I've got, a lot of experience of mouthing off and not taking a pause. But I was, working for a client, trying to help them get published, reached out to an agent. He said he wanted to see, the proposal and one thing and another, so I sent it over. And then he reaches out and he says, thanks, this is great, but I'm not the right person for it, but somebody else will probably feel different, right? So a very standard agent response.
Mm-hmm.
And though is the kind of agent where, I'd like to establish a relationship. I'd like to work with him at some point. And it's always good to nurture these things. So I write back to him and I say, look, I work with lots of people. If maybe there's somebody who would be a good fit, do you mind if I pitched you again?
Right.
And he responds and he goes, yeah, absolutely. And I was so happy and like excited
Yeah.
to hear that I immediately sent him a name.
Yeah.
And here's something I'm working on, even though like we're not ready. And, it was really jumping the gun. And I should have just said thank you.
Yeah.
But instead, I took it to this next step. And I don't know if it was right or wrong. Nothing bad has come of it. But the second I sent that last email,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, all of that anxiety, every anxiety trigger goes off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I'm like, fuck. And I'm doing all the like, you asshole, stop, just stop, right?
Yeah.
Like, just pause for a second and think, like, does this need a response?
Yeah.
If so, what's the right response? But maybe it doesn't, just let the invitation hang.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it got me to thinking, there's I'm much better at it than I used to be. When I first started doing this, I would react to negative things emotionally, positive things emotionally, and often in ways that, the second after you react feels rash.
Yeah.
And like it's not well thought out.
Yeah.
And I can't point to any time where, I've really caused harm, but I've caused myself a lot of anxiety, probably have made mistakes. And so it's about trying to figure out how to take the pause when you take the pause and do the proper reflection.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've been there too. So I've been in the similar situation where I was corresponding with somebody and then I put out an invitation to do something together, and the response was really, really fast. And I just felt like they might have a policy at this stage in their life of saying, no to everything or saying yes to everything, because that can happen. But also, I just felt there was a bit of sort of a knee-jerk reaction as part of it. It was kind of weird for me to be on what I felt, and I could be completely imagining everything, but I just felt like, yeah, that was so fast. It almost feels like it couldn't have been, there couldn't really have been a lot of thought in how fast it was. And so then I started thinking about my own, well, we've been talking about the pause just now, but it makes me think about my own response to when something happens that's either good or bad, and it doesn't have to be work related. So in your case, it was good news.
Mm-hmm.
You were excited, so you responded immediately. For me, sometimes something happens that pisses me off, and I'm already pissed off. I can escalate without really paying attention to what I'm doing. Not so much in in person because I'm kind of like chill in person, but
Yeah, like how many times can you get asked, do you want oat milk with that or regular? It's like, I'm coming, here I come,
and that kind of thing, I don't give a shit. They can ask me 100 times, but yeah, so I've been doing this thing called the presence process. So there's a book by a person named Michael Brown,
Mhm.
and it's called the presence process. It's been around for a long time. It's a 10-week kind of thing you walk through, and it has this process where you use breathing as a way to get yourself into the present moment, but you do it on a very regimented, almost like a meditation type schedule, twice a day for 15 minutes each time. And I noticed this morning that the types of my thoughts were changing. Like I was aware of what kind of category of thinking my thoughts were in. So I first started, became aware that I was thinking about my own life and things I didn't want to happen. you know, like
Yeah.
oh, I hope that doesn't happen. Oh gosh, that would be awful. Or just how am I going to handle that? Or oh no, and that
Like,
none of
yeah,
it had
the
happened.
disaster planning
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah, disaster planning. Exactly. And that was very handy when I was in the conference industry because you always have to have a plan B, but it
Right.
doesn't it only translates to certain aspects of life. And the things I was thinking, it was nothing that matters all that much. It was one day in a life kind of thing. So partway through that kind of thinking, I guess at the end, I thought, oh, that's the kinds of thoughts I'm having. And then I went through another 4 or 5 minutes where towards the end of that period of breathing, realized, oh, I'm having a different category of thought now. And I was really just, I want to say I was intellectualizing, like I was thinking
Mhm.
about stuff that isn't personal and just, thinking about topics that I'm interested in, but in a kind of a removed way for a number of minutes. And then I went into just breathing I feel like it was without thinking because I don't remember what I was thinking and I never arrived at an opinion about what I was thinking. But my point of this long story is to say that I think the ability to take a pause when you're
Uh-huh.
in the middle of an interaction with somebody, even if it's on email or social media or not in person, is a thing you can train. It,
Right.
it's that it's doesn't come natural to everybody. I think some people naturally are very thoughtful or just slow to respond or learned really young that responding quickly is not a great idea. So they've integrated that habit of pausing into their lives and into how they interact with other people. But I never learned that as a kid. I had to train myself through meditation mostly over the last, I'm
Mhm.
going to say 30 years. I don't always meditate, but I think the more you do that kind of practicing, noticing what kinds of thoughts you're having, the easier it is to apply it as you go through your day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing that I found really interesting is this breathing technique, this meditation that you're doing without too much intentionality other than taking the 15 minutes to sit down and do a very specific breathing technique
Hmm.
allows you to get to a place where you can think about your thoughts
Yeah.
from a removed perspective
Yeah.
and gain some clarity on how are you going to deal with that or just to let it go, right?
Right.
So this disaster planning thing
Yeah.
is, really that's like what I described as kind of almost pure anxiety, right? So there's a
Yeah.
kernel of truth.
Yeah.
Like somebody, and we all have those people in our lives, could cause a problem at a key event,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so there's a certain part of our brain and our makeup as human beings that wants to say, okay, I need to be ready.
Yeah.
Right. But then the anxiety kicks in and then it becomes like, oh, like the worst thing is going to happen and it's going
Yeah.
to turn into like this big brouhaha.
Yeah.
Like when I was a reporter, I used to sometimes I would do things on the radio, on public radio.
Yeah.
And my biggest fear was that someone who knows me was going to call up and be like, "You're the biggest asshole I know. Why the fuck are you saying all this bullshit about our politics? You dumbass."
Oh, that's so likely.
Yeah. But it used to freeze me up right at night. The night before,
Yeah.
I'd be like, this is gonna happen,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so having that way to take it 15 minutes and navigate that is pretty cool.
Mhm.
And I wonder so my issue is I've gotten better, but I'm still not great. That something negative happens, so I react to it too quickly. Something positive happens, I
Mhm.
react to it too quickly. And it's always in the moment, and it's something that creates more of an emotional response than just like your average email kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's about recognizing the trigger. And I wonder, how do you recognize those triggers in yourself?
I don't know that I do. That's a good question because I'm just thinking, it takes, I figure success some ways in becoming an emotionally mature person is understanding how you operate. And it used to take me a really long time to figure out when something triggered me. And now I'm usually aware the same day, but I don't know that I'm aware in the same hour even. And trigger is a funny word because it's like it implies there's this sort of circle of behavior, that gets triggered. Like somebody puts you on the treadmill and you're on there and you got to know you're on there before you can step off it again. I think it comes from stuff that happened, decisions you made, your beliefs that were established inside yourself, when you were little. And so you might not always know what your beliefs are until you go through the whole process of seeing yourself get triggered by, say, really good news.
Mhm.
That fizziness for me, it's always a body thing that I notice a trigger because I feel fizzy. Yeah, like my
Right.
blood feels fizzy, whether
Right.
whether it's good or bad. I have the same physiological response to what we can call triggers, which is this kind of fizziness. And then now when I feel that fizziness, sometimes I think, Pat, take a step back, go up, walk around if it's an email or something. And again, good or bad news doesn't matter. Sometimes I think that, and sometimes I respond because I'm excited. And sometimes those responses when I'm excited are really fun. Like, wow, awesome. And that's heartening for somebody on the other side. If they've told me good news, I'm so excited for them.
Yeah. So what's happening on my end is my new camera decided to update or something, and now I have to restart my entire computer. All right, people. So we had a little bit of a technology interruption on my end. Apologies to Pat because she was saying things that were just utterly brilliant.
Oh, I think I was saying you're fucked. If you don't meditate, you're never going to be able to take that pause. But that is bullshit. I do think some people are really just hardwired to pause. And
Mhm.
some people are kind of messy wired to respond quickly when they're excited. For me personally, the thing that has helped is kind of learning how my brain operates. So, and now if I'm not sure if I think I might be, reacting too quickly, I will force myself away from the situation to just say, let it hang there. Like it's that
Right,
tolerance of uncertainty thing. Let it,
right.
like you said with your example of the email, just let the invitation hang out there. I'm perfectly comfortable from the other side where people don't respond immediately or even within a few days. I don't, it's, I, sometimes I don't even remember that we're interacting on something, but most of the time I'm like, yeah, this will unfold as
Right. Yes.
as it's
Yes.
meant to. So what do you think?
No, I agree. And part of that reacting very quickly, and it's not a conscious thing so much,
Yeah.
is, wanting to push, right? Wanting
Mm,
something to happen. And so there are times where that's the wrong strategy.
yeah.
And you've got to be able to just kind of say, good, I've got this invitation. The door has been opened.
Yeah.
Let's leave it open, set it aside, go on to the next thing. When I'm ready to go back there, then I'm ready to go back there. And I didn't, I kind of like tried to pull the trigger too quick because I was like, and the feeling of that angst is like, oh, I'm so uncool. Like a smart negotiator, a smart player knows when to hold off and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I just felt like a dumbass. which happens frequently.
Yeah. Join the
But
club.
yeah, so I think the big thing is because it's sort of almost an unconscious reaction, you need to get very, very good at recognizing that trigger. And you said
Yeah.
like there's a physical sensation. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
having that memory of it, and then the pause that you described, the meditation, I think is really, really good. And I've been absolutely blown away by how good there's all these different breathing techniques
Mm.
to calm
Yeah.
yourself, and you can get there's really good apps and it works.
Yeah.
It's not going to cure big huge issues of anxiety, depression, blah blah blah, but in the moment they work really, really well. And so yeah, let's be good at taking a pause, let something hang,
Hmm.
evolve, be
Yeah.
patient.
That makes total sense. And I just want to add, there's science around this vagus nerve stuff, which you can stimulate by breathing. You can stimulate it by, massaging your earlobes and stuff like that. And you can self-regulate in that way. And I think having the tools to recognize that you kind of need to take a pause and self-regulate maybe is a slow process.
Right.
Those tools, like apps, are so great for that. And yeah, it's not a long-term cure for any condition, but it is a way to sort of short circuit your thinking mind. Because the other part that strikes me is that thoughts are not reality. And so if we're acting on our thoughts, whether it's excitement or anger or whatever, we're acting on our perception of reality. We might even be projecting stuff onto somebody that is not there, when they say,
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely, send it over. That might just be their common response to people who
Mhm.
ask, can I pitch you?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so there's this recognition, I guess, that what you're thinking, sometimes it's better not to act on it because what you're thinking is not real. Um,
right.
and that can create its own problems. So I guess I'm with you on that.
Cool. All right. Well, we haven't solved the world's problems yet.
Or even our own.
Yeah, or even our own. But I think yeah, it's a nice little discussion, and I feel better about my not pausing and reacting, and I
Yeah.
feel like all these little lessons accrue, and hopefully do better the next time,
Or not.
or not. Yeah. I can get shittier.
It's always an option.
It's always a great possibility.
Thanks so much for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. We'd love to hear from you, so send us an email to giftedunderachievers@substack.com or visit our Substack site and leave a comment. Until next time.